So very good afternoon. Post lunch, we are beginning with the second session, technical session, and I think we will start it in a couple of minutes. I would request the coordinator for this session, Professor Alak Sahu, to kindly come up and take over the stage and please. Thank you.
आप सभी को नमस्कार. So we are going to have our post-lunch session very soon. So students who are sitting outside, please come inside and call your friends so that we can start the session within the time. आप सभी से आग्रह है छात्रों से कि अपने अपने मित्रों को यहाँ पर अंदर बुला लें ताकि हम अपना सत्र सही समय पर शुरू कर सकें. धन्यवाद. So, greetings and warm welcome to you all in this post-lunch session of the National Conclave, No Odia, No Odisha, Window to Odia Cultural Heritage. Respected dignitaries, esteemed scholars, and all the participants present in this hall, my respectful greetings to all of you. On this auspicious occasion of the National Conclave on No Odia, No Odisha, a window to Odia cultural heritage, it's my great pleasure to welcome you all and to call Professor Ileana Citaristi on the dais, please. May I call upon Padma Shri Dr. Ileana Citaristi also on the chair. As I have been assigned to introduce Professor Ileana Citaristi, so I will take few minutes to introduce ma'am. Professor Ileana Citaristi, Professor of Dance at Banaras Hindu University, is a renowned academician and accomplished exponent of Indian classical dance. Professor Ileana Citaristi is a distinguished practitioner, scholar of music and dance, embodying a rare blend of performance, pedagogy and research in Indian performing arts. Trained in Bharatanatyam by Padma Bhushan Professor C.V. Chandrasekharji and initiated into music by her father, Pandit B.R. Bhattji, she has developed a profound engagement with both movement and musical traditions. Her career in performance includes solo recitals in Gorakhpur, Ranchi and Varanasi, as well as notable contribution to Sanskrit theatre through acting and dance in production such as Malvika Agnimitram and Uttar Ramcharitam, directed by Professor Premlata Sarmaji. She has also been actively involved in directing, choreography and costume design for major theatrical productions like Satya Harishchandra and Chandravali Natika. Her creative practice includes composing group choreographies in Bharatanatyam style based on the text like Vishwanathashtakam, Ganga, Strotram, as well as the original works like Vashant Nritya, Ganapati Stuti and Saraswati Stuti, drawing inspiration from the composition of Pandit Balwant Rai Bhattji. Notably, she has also created traditional dance pieces such as Jatiswaram within a North Indian Raga framework, showcasing an innovative cross-regional approach. Her contribution has received numerous honors, including ISCLO Award 1986, Vishisht Shikshak Samman 2007, Printaniya Award 2008, Malviya Smriti Samman 2020, Women of Substance 2021-22, and Kaustav Kala Ratna, to name a few. Professor Ileana Citaristi has made a significant and multifaceted contribution to Indian society. Her impact can be seen in the following dimensions: preservation of cultural heritage, academia excellence and research, mentorship and capacity building, cultural integration and national identity, empowerment through arts. Professor Ileana Citaristi stands as a bridge between tradition and modernity. Her lifelong dedication to dance not only enriches the artistic community but also strengthens the cultural fabrics of Indian society. Let us all extend a warm welcome to Professor Ileana Citaristi with a great round of applause. So may I now call upon Professor Ileana Citaristi and request her to kindly introduce Padma Shri Dr. Ileana Citaristi. Thank you, ma'am. Please.
Niranjan Sahuji for giving me the opportunity to introduce the speaker of this session, Dr. Ileana Citaristi ji. सभी को नमस्कार यहाँ पे, क्योंकि प्रदोष मिश्रा जी से मुझको कल मालूम चल गया था कि इलियाना जी उड़िया भी बहुत अच्छा बोलती हैं, हिंदी भी समझती हैं, इंग्लिश भी बोलती ही हैं, तो मैं ये लिबर्टी ले रही हूँ हिंदी में उनका परिचय जो मुझको मिला है आपके साथ शेयर करने को। जो परिचय मेरे पास है वो मैं पढ़ूँगी, लेकिन मैं जानती हूँ कि ज़्यादातर लोग उनको जानते होंगे नाम से भी और उनके काम से भी, और उनके लेक्चर के बाद फिर मेरी जो भावनाएं हैं उनके प्रति उसको मैं बाद में व्यक्त करूँगी। आपका जन्म इटली में हुआ है और आप ओडिशी और छऊ नृत्य के क्षेत्र में एक प्रतिष्ठित और विशिष्ट नाम बन चुकी हैं। ओडिशी में गुरु केलुचरण महापात्र और छऊ में गुरु श्री हरि नायक की वरिष्ठ शिष्या के रूप में उन्होंने एक नर्तकी, नृत्य निर्देशिका, शिक्षिका, अकादमिक विदुषी और शोधकर्ता के रूप में दोनों नृत्य शैलियों में उल्लेखनीय योगदान दिया है। आप भारतीय शास्त्रीय नृत्य की उन चुनिंदा साधकों में से हैं जिनके नाम 5 महत्वपूर्ण प्रकाशन भी दर्ज हैं। ओडिशी और छऊ दोनों में अपनी सृजनात्मक कोरियोग्राफी के लिए प्रसिद्ध इलियाना जी ने पारंपरिक भारतीय शैलियों में निहित रहते हुए भी पश्चिमी अवधारणाओं का प्रयोग कर पूर्व और पश्चिम के बीच एक सेतु स्थापित किया है। भारत में आपने सभी प्रमुख उत्सवों में प्रस्तुति दी है तथा विदेशों में भी आपने एकल और नृत्य समूह प्रस्तुतियों का व्यापक प्रदर्शन किया है। डॉक्टर इलियाना चितारिस्ती को अनेक प्रतिष्ठित पुरस्कारों से सम्मानित किया गया है, जिनमें लियोनिड मासिंग फॉर द आर्ट ऑफ डांस इटली से, राष्ट्रीय सर्वश्रेष्ठ कोरियोग्राफी पुरस्कार 1996 में, भारत के राष्ट्रपति द्वारा पद्मश्री तथा इटली के राष्ट्रपति द्वारा ऑर्डर ऑफ द स्टार ऑफ इटालियन सॉलिडेरिटी शामिल हैं। आप दूरदर्शन की टॉप ग्रेड कलाकार हैं तथा ICCR में उत्कृष्ट कलाकार के रूप में सूचीबद्ध हैं। विदेशी होने के उपरांत भी भारतीय संस्कृति को जितना आपने आत्मसात किया है, जितना उसमें अवगाहन किया है और यहाँ की नृत्य शैली में पारंगत हैं आप, और इसलिए भारत सरकार ने आपको पद्मश्री दिया है। ये बहुत ही हर्ष का विषय है हम सभी के लिए। डॉक्टर इलियाना चितारिस्ती ने 1994 में स्थापित अपनी संस्था आर्ट विजन के माध्यम से वर्ष भर में अनेक विशिष्ट अवधारणाओं पर आधारित उत्सवों का आयोजन किया है, जैसे कलिंग महोत्सव जो युद्धक नृत्यों का उत्सव है और संगम फेस्टिवल जो विभिन्न नृत्य शैलियों के संगम का उत्सव है। आर्ट विजन में स्थानीय और नवागत विद्यार्थियों के लिए नियमित कक्षाएं संचालित होती हैं तथा इसके लघु सभागार में दर्शकों और पर्यटकों के लिए प्रस्तुतियां आयोजित की जाती हैं। ये बहुत ही अच्छी बात है कि प्रोफेशनल डांसर होने के उपरांत आपके पास जो ज्ञान का भंडार है उसको आप आने वाली पीढ़ियों के साथ बांट रही हैं और उसका हस्तांतरण हो रहा है। अब हम सभी उत्सुक हैं इलियाना जी को सुनने के लिए। डॉक्टर इलियाना चितारिस्टी।
ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ନମସ୍କାର। ମୁଁ ଜାଣୁଛି ଯେଉଁ ଟପିକ୍ ମୁଁ କହିବି ଟିକେ ହେଭି ଥିବ, so I hope you will remain awake। ମାନେ ଏବେ ଟିକେ ନିଦ ଟିକେ କାହିଁକିନା ଯଦି ନ ଶୋଇବ ତାପରେ ଲାଷ୍ଟରେ ମୁଁ 5 ମିନିଟ୍ ନାଚ କରିବି। So the topic which I'm going to talk about is Odissi and the Gita Govinda. So, which is also the title of the book, which in case anybody later on would like to know more, you can always go through the book, Odissi and the Gita Govinda. Why I choose at a certain point to talk about Odissi and Gita Govinda in my book? I think Gita Govinda is a poem which is like a thread in the Odisha culture. So through it we can really go through in so many aspects, and so it's binding together many different aspects of the Odisha culture from the 12th century onward. So it was my homage to Odisha through this book. So I'll start I'll read it out. So, in tracing back the history of the cultural landscape of Odisha, one has to deal with three major sources of information: the mythological and oral tradition, the temple chronicles, and historical records. In relation to the history of the temple of Lord Jagannath, or Sri Mandir, which is where our story begins, the mythological source, as narrated in the Skanda Purana, tells about the legendary king Indradyumna. I'm sure this story all the Odia, even young students should know. The disappearing of Nilamada idol worshipped by the Sabara tribals, the reappearing of the Dharu or log, the construction of the temple, and the consecration of the idols by Brahma himself, accompanied by the dance and music of Apsara and Gandharva. So this story is a very known story, which it is both belonging to the oral tradition and to the Skanda Purana. According to the temple chronicles, or Madala Panji, a king of the Somavansi dynasty around the first half of the 10th century recovered the images, this is what we found in the Madala Panji, recovered the images of the deities which had been lying buried for 150 years under the banyan tree due to the havoc created in Puri by the enemy invasion, reconstructed the Bodha Deula, temple of Lord Jagannath, and reinstalled the deities on the Simhasana with great pomp and ceremony, for which he got the title of second Indradyumna. The historical records are almost unanimous in attributing the construction of the Jagannath temple to Chodaganga Deva. His timing is between 1077 and 1142. The first monarch of the Gangavansi dynasty, and to attribute to the rulers of this dynasty the merit of establishing the cult of Purushottama Jagannath as the main cult of Utkala, and putting Puri on the map as one of the 4 dhams, holy places, in India, along with Ramnath in the south, Dwarkanath in the west, and Badrinath in the north. The birth of poet Jayadev is placed in the second half of the 12th century, during the reign of King Raghav, who is the second son of Chodaganga Deva. And from the Madala Panji, we come to know that during the reign of Kavi Narasimha Deva, the chanting of the Gita Govinda had already been introduced in the temple. Narasimha Deva is 1279-1307, so second half of the 12th century. From now onward, the privileged place occupied by the poem in the ritualistic activities of the temples runs uninterrupted. Even the Sanskrit work written by King Purushottama Deva of the Suryavansi dynasty, now we are reaching the 15th century, titled Abhinav Gita Govinda, considered to be one of the best imitation of the original one, did not get the chance to replace Jayadeva poem since it was rejected by Jagannath himself. So there is the legend. As I said, we have always to go between the chronicles, written chronicles, the legend, the oral tradition, So it seems that this king had tried to substitute his own poem as a ritualistic worship in the temple, in the Lord Jagannath temple, but in the morning when they opened the door, it seems that only the Jayadeva one was again there, and the one by the king was displaced. So Jagannath decided that only Jayadev poem he wanted. It was after this attempt that the edict by his son Prataparudra Deva, who is 1497-1540, so again 15th century, was inscribed in Odia on the western wall of the Jagannath temple. That one can still see. With it, the king was strictly ordering that only Jayadev's Gita Govinda should be sang and danced inside the temple between the end of the Sandhya Dhupa, evening divine meal, and the beginning of the Bora Singara Dhupa, which is the night meal and the ornamentation of the idols of Lord Jagannath and Balarama, by the 4 batches of temple dancer. That is, the batch of the Bodha Thakura, the female dancer of Kapileshwara Thakura, the old batch, the Telangi batch, and by 4 Vaishnava singers. So this is what the edict of Prataparudra Deva says, that the Gita Govinda has to be sang at this point in the evening before the Bodha Singara. Although we don't know how exactly these instructions were carried on at that time, it is a fact that a category of temple dancers, or Mahari, as they are called in Puri, was entrusted with the singing of the Gita Govinda at the time of the Bodha Singara Dhupa of Lord Jagannath until the middle of the last century. So it seems that the ritual got discontinued only after the last Mahari belonging to the Bitare Gahani category, who was in charge to perform this ritual, died. So this happened around 1930-35, the last. The fact that the poem was enacted inside the temple as part of the daily rituals facilitated the dissemination of it not only among the Odia devotees, but also all over the continent. It is a fact that pilgrims and saints from all over India visiting Puri in the Jagannath temple brought back with them to their respective regions the text of the poem the way they witnessed it in the temple rituals. The strong impression created by the visual interpretation through dance and gestures, beside the melodic rendition accompanied by the ritualistic and the devotional atmosphere, may explain in part the enormous appeal this little poem acquired along the centuries and how it became a source of inspiration for so many artistic creations. Now a little bit about the poem. The Gita Govinda, literally the song of the cowherd, has been defined as a raga kavya or Gita kavya, a poem meant to be sung in different melodic patterns or raga and to be interpreted through gestures and recitations or abhinaya. Each of the 24 songs, called prabhanda, means rhythmically bounded, and ashtapadi, 8 stanza, are composed by a dhruva pada, a refrain which is repeated after each couple of verses, and 8 rhymed couples of verses or pada, with the last one called banita, a sort of signature which contains the name of the poet Jayadev. Preceding the songs and in between them, there are Sanskrit verses, which can be considered recitative verses since they are not bound to a particular musical melody, like the prabandha. The combination of verses rigorously following the conventional syllabic structure of classical Sanskrit poetry and rhythmic verses based on musical time or chanda, like the ones found in the Prabandha, is the particular feature introduced in Sanskrit literature for the first time by poet Jayadev. Beside the exquisite literal merit of the poem as a masterpiece of Sanskrit literature, another unique distinction of the same is the importance given to Radha as the central character of the story, superior even to the divine male counterpart. who submissively worships and passionately desires her. Until then, Radha, although not totally unknown, had not acquired an entity of her own, either as the cult figure or as the literary heroine. We can mention as Jayadev possible sources of inspiration the cult of Devi worship and the prominence given to the female counterpart of the male god in the form of Shakti, doctrine which flourished between the 7th and 12th century in the northeastern region, or the influence of the Buddhist tantric literature or Charyapada written by the Siddhacharya between the 8th and the 12th century, where the female counterpart assumes the pivot role in the attainment of the mystical union with the eternal bliss. Jayadev poem is a sort of transition between the Sahaja doctrine of the Buddhist tantric cult and the Bhakti-oriented Vaishnava Dharma. The Sringara and or Madhura Rasa in the Gita Govinda is finalized towards the attainment of the total surrender of the Bhakta to the Supreme Divinity Jagadish Jagannath Krishna. But none of these sources can totally explain the deep psychological and emotional connotation of the character of Radha created by Jayadev. Probably the intense relationship shared by the poet with his companion and source of inspiration, Padmavati, may be the real cue to explain the intensity and emotional depth of Radha character in the Gita Govinda. Padmavati herself, to whose feet the poet offers his work, is considered by the poet superior to himself, since she experiences the divine presence in close proximity. Everybody knows about the episodes in which when Jayadev goes to take bath and he's not able to finish the one particular line of the 19th song where Krishna is supposed to ask surrenders to Radha. So he leaves it unsolved, unwritten, and while he's taking bath, Padmavati sees him coming back, and he writes the particular stanza, Depada Pallava Mudaram, and then he goes back. So when Jayadeva comes back and he finds the written verse, he asks, who has written? But Padmavati says, you came back. So Jayadeva understands that Krishna himself came to write that the particular line. So that's why he offered the entire script to Padmavati, because he could be more near to Krishna than himself. In the poem, Radha, maintaining all through her dignity as Uttama Naika, goes through the emotional uphills of 7 out of the 8 types of Naika classified in the Sanskrit treatise of the Natya Shastra. After having seen her lover engage in amorous sports with the other women, she pulls back and confides her secret desires and love fantasies to her friend. And this is Vira Utkantita Naika. She ornaments and dresses for love, Vasaka Sajika, and in her delirium embraces all the dark forms which she sees in the night, thinking that he has come. That is the famous Ashtapadi Pashyati Disi Disi. While the night advances and the moon rises, Radha laments to have been deceived by the suggestion of her friends. This is Vipralabdha Naika. And when she sees her friend coming back without Krishna, she goes into a feverish state of mind, imagining him sporting with another woman. At last, at dawn, after struggling through the entire night, she gets the strength to reject her lover, who has come to her with visible marks of love-making inflicted by another woman. This is Kandita Naika. At this point, the Saki scolds her for her pride, and she feels remorseful after quarreling and becomes Kalantarita Naika. At her friend's urging, Radha's modesty abandons her, and she goes to meet her lover, who has now become faithful to her, Abhisarika Naika. After displaying her passion in the love play which followed, she feels her lover in her power. Swadina Bartlika Nayaka. Another important female character in the story is played by the confidant of Saki, Radha's companion. In her role as go-in-between in the attempt to reconcile the two estranged lovers, she embodies the role of the bhakta, the ideal devotee, who gives substance and life to the divine by her intense love and dedication. From the dramatic point of view, her character adds an extra dimension to the plot, because it can be interpreted impersonally as a third person with the detachment of the observer, or in the first person by making her impersonating one or the other of the two characters. She can also be identified with the figure of the Guru who guides the disciple towards experiencing the enlightenment. Although the Gita Govinda is not fully a drama in the sense of having characters and dialogue in it, it has inspired many future imitations on the same theme, which include both dialogue and songs in their compositions. The theme and style of composition introduced by Jayadev has been adopted as a leading thread by the poet of Odisha, as well as other regions, both in Sanskrit and in vernacular language, in the subsequent centuries. Literary compositions, including the three characters of Radha, Krishna, and one or more Sakhi, composed in the form of musical plays with sections of prose interposed with lyrical verses set to various raga and tala, gave scope to dramatic representation, mostly meant for the dissemination of the bhakti cult among the masses. Now let's go from the temple to the stage. The Mahari, through their seva, in the form of dancing and singing, discharge different roles in the rituals, and their relations with the deity, although being officially that of a wife, assume a variety of shades and turn at times into that of a mother, a playmate, a temptress, or a mistress. The main rasa underlying all these roles is the Sringara rasa, in the form of bhakti or devotion. Their dance was offered not to obtain anything in exchange, but for the only purpose to give pleasure to him. Although we don't know exactly if and how the dance was enacted at the time of the evening Sheva of the Mahari, we can assume that the introduction of the singing of Gita Govinda in the temple from the 13th century onwards must have gone side by side with the development of the art of Abhinaya on the part of the temple dancers. Quite a few scholars who came to Odisha in the middle of the last century have declared to have been fascinated by the rendering of the Ashtapadi demonstrated to them by the Mahari. The dances of the Mahari, being a ritual offering rather than entertainment, had to conform to certain rules and style dictated by the atmosphere of religious reverence in which they were performed. Accordingly, a deep display of Bhakti Bhav would be given more importance in place of complex rhythmic patterns and intricate footwork. Circular and wavy movements typical of religious dances would be predominant. The Abhinaya would be simple but touching and impressive. After the Abhinava Gita Govinda by King Purushottama Deva, the second imitation of the Gita Govinda, the Sri Jagannath Vallabha Nataka by Rai Ramananda, belonging to first half of 16th century, is already in the form of a drama, with the prose passages to be recited and the songs to be sung according to the specific raga. Okay, this type of dramatic performances paved the way towards the popularization of the different forms of Ras Lila and Krishna Lila, which flourished in Odisha from the 16th century onward. This ran parallel to the institution of the Akhada Phila or Gotipua, which started in the Akhara or Gymnasium in Puri as part of the ritualistic activities of the temple, and then slowly acquire a commercialized form of entertainment patronized by the zamindars and landlords. So you'll see the Gotipua tonight. We can consider these forms of medieval dramas as fertile grooming ground for the evolution of the performing arts, which eventually brought the revival of the classical forms of dances in the 20th century. In particular, in Odisha, the classical form of Odissi dance has incorporated many of the elements contained not only in the Mahari and Gotipua, but also in the histrionic characters of these popular dramatic representations. In fact, by the beginning of the last century, with the performances of the Gotipua considered to be mostly enacted for the sole purpose of obtaining support and monetary rewards, and the dance of the Mahari on the verge of extinction due to the continuous dominations of foreign powers, the art of Raslila was the only surviving artistic expression which would include all the different disciplines of literature, music, and dance. The formative years of most of the dance masters were considered pioneers in the revival of the dance style, which from the middle of the last century onwards started to be called Odissi, have been spent in the atmosphere of these Raslila parties. And it is due to this kind of training, covering all the different aspects of the performing craft, that they could emerge as creative innovators of an art which had almost been extinct. Kalicharan Patnaik, a stalwart in the history of Odia literature and performing arts, started his Krishna Lila troupe called Saki Gopal Natya Sangha in the early 30s, giving performances both in Puri and Kathak. The performing unit included boys and females who were training in the Gotipal style of dance by Mohan Mohapatra, one of the most renowned dance masters of Puri during those times, and in the Mahari style by Singari Shamsundar Kar, the doyen of Odissi music. Kalicharan translated the Git Govinda into Oriya, strictly following the Swara and Chanda of the Sanskrit version, and presented it in form of Raslila for at least 500 nights in different parts of Odisha through his group of young boys and girls. The emergence of Odia theatre scene in the early 40s marked the end of the Lila as forms of independent representations, and they become part of the repertoire of theatre groups, along with the other plays based on modern and mythological subjects. Many of the artists who were involved in the Lila shifted to the newly opened theatre groups, so that a certain continuation in the tradition could be maintained, and the more popular libretto of the Lila continued to be represented even if in a more secular environment. When towards the end of 1946, in the Annapurna B Theatre, which had opened in Cuttack the previous year, rehearsal for the new drama Sadhava Jio, the Merchant Daughter, started, all the directors agreed on having a dance item inserted in the plot. Durlab Chandra Singh, who, like all the other directors, had been associated with the theatre of Kalicharan Patnaik before joining the Annapurna one, suggested that the opening invocation of the Gita Govinda, the Dasavatar poem, depicting the 10 incarnation of Lord Vishnu, could be composed for the purpose. What emerged was a result of the combined efforts of all the people involved, each contributing in his own capacity to make what was later to be defined as an historical event in the evolution of Odissi dance, due to the participation, among others, of two of the future stalwarts of the dance revival, Pankaj Charan Das in the role of choreographer and Kelucharan Mohapatra in the dancer role. So this 1946 event of the Dasavatar was, we can consider, the first choreography of Odissi, but it was still part of the theatre one play, in the beginning of a play. So the dance had not yet emerged as a separate form. The revival. In the first 10 years or so of the dance revival period, from the 1950s onward, the only Gita Govinda item presented on stage was the Dasavatar one. No other Ashtapadi had been dealt by the dance master in this preliminary phase. The extremely young age of the dancers and the not yet fully developed confidence and expertise in the technical nuances of the dance lexicon on the part of the guru, along with the erotic overtones contained in the Gita Govinda, can be considered as the reason for the delay in dealing with the poem. Okay, you need an interval or what?
May I request please to keep silence?
I don't think this topic will interest this small girl. Among the guru who attempted the composition of the Ashtapadi of the Gita Govinda in this preliminary phase were Mayadhar Raut and Kelucharan Mohapatra. It is interesting to know how both of them seem to have had the same reaction when facing the objections raised from different quarters against the teaching of the Ashtapadi to young female dancers. There was, of course, the erotic content of the poem was very much prominent, and there was a lot of, apart from the, as Sar told, that the ladies were not participating at that point in the theater, but also the precedence, the type of opinion which the general opinion was against the Badasi and the Mahari, which were considered as unfortunately as a prostitute, and the erotic content of the poem was not encouraging the teaching to this kind of poems to the young female. But for those brought up in the atmosphere of the Vaishnava faith and philosophy, the union and amorous play of Radha and Krishna, depicted in worldly terms in the poem, were seen as representing the desire of the human soul, Atma, to unite with the universal soul, Paramatma, and did not have any vulgar or mundane connotation. So both the declaration of these two, particularly these two gurus, which I had collected, Mayadhar Raut and Kelucharan Mohapatra, were responding to this kind of objection by saying that there was no vulgarity because it was symbolically and spiritually a union of Atma and Paramatma. It was nothing to do with the carnal relation between men and women. In the early 60s, the Ashtapadi started to be composed in the linear and simple way, adhering to the literal meaning of the words of the poems without trying to add any amplification. The introduction of the Sanchari Bhava, or auxiliary situation, meant to reinforce and sustain the principal emotion of Sthai Bhav expressed in a particular song, happened gradually, along with the increasing of the dancer maturity and of the master confidence and experience as composers. This is a very important passage in the choreographic history and in the evolution of the dance, and also what gives liberty to each master and choreographer who deals with the same text, because after all the Gita Govinda has been choreographed by everybody, not only in Odisha but in all the form. So what is distinguishing one composition from another? Is this kind of liberty, or to amplify, to read in between the lines, to add elements to what the poem suggests. So this is what is called Sanchari Bhava. So here is where the creativity of the composer is being shown. It is difficult to ascertain with absolute certainty when and who introduced the use of amplification and dramatization in the first compositions of the Ashtapadi during this formative phase of the Odissi repertoire. The exposure of Mayadhar Raut to the Abhinaya composition in Bharatanatyam style during his training period at the Kalakshetra school in Chennai have certainly played a role in transmitting a wider knowledge and in suggesting new possibilities to be adopted in the rendition of the Odissi Abhinaya as well. On the other hand, Orient literature was supplying enough material in terms of anecdotes and colorful stories about the Radha Krishna theme to be utilized for imaginative and creative interpolations. The vast literature on the subject belongs to the centuries subsequent to the time in which the Gita Govinda was composed, and the amplifications inserted in the stories are the fruits of the imagination of the innumerable poets who dealt with it. The dramatization of the same story in a variety of Raslila representations have furnished even more material in terms of dialogue scenes, variety of characters, twist in the tale, and colorful anecdotes from where the guru could draw inspiration for their dance composition. The staging of the Gita Govinda as a dance drama in Odissi style by the Kala Vikas Kendra in 1963 with Maya Raut in the role of Krishna and Sanjukta Panigrai as Radha, with choreography by Kelucharan Mohapatra, can also be mentioned as a possible step towards a more expanded treatment of the solo compositions. Each of the songs presented in shorter version in the dance drama and interpreted by different dancers started to be re-elaborated and expanded as solo versions, where the solo dancer would act all the characters by portraying appropriate action and expressions for each of them. Equally essential became the collaboration of the Guru with the Sanskrit Pandits, who would explain the meaning and subtleties of the Sanskrit poetry for the right interpretation and understanding of the same. It was then left to the ability of each individual choreographer to create visual imageries which could match the aesthetic sublime quality of the poetry. From the middle of the 60s onwards, the time became ripe for the burst of creativity which followed, and each of the pioneer guru pursued their own inclination for the common goal of enriching and establishing the newly recomposed Odissi style on the world map. Pankaj Charan Das went back to research and re-elaborate the Mahari tradition and whatever was still existing of it among the community of temple dancers still surviving in Puri. Dev Prasad Das kept alive the connection with the folk tradition of southern and western Odisha and molded them into his own peculiar vision and interpretation of the Odissi idiom. Maya Raut, being the youngest among them, continued to perform as the leading male dancer in the dance dramas which were being composed in those years, and Kelucharan Mohapatra, relying on his own instinctive creativity, imagination, histrionic talent, and expertise as Mardana player, took inspiration in the development of his artistic expression from the knowledge received in terms of acting and abhinaya during the 12 years of his association with the Raslila party of Guru Mohan Sundar Dev Goswami. It was from the rich canvas of the songs written by the Odia medieval poets dealing with Radha and Krishna that he could draw the myriad of stories and anecdotes for his Odissi composition. For example, the first version of the 17th song of the poem Yahi Madhava Yahi Keshava Mahavada Kahi Davavadam. Go away, Madhava, go away, Keshava, don't tell your lies to me, when composed in the late 50s, did not include the mischievous responses of Krishna trying to defend himself from Radha accusations on seeing the marks left by the other woman on his body. Krishna replies that the black spot on his lips is not a mark of kajal left from kissing another woman's eyes, but marks of blueberries juice, or that the scratches on his chest are not marks left during the love making, but wounds caused by the thorn bushes were added only in the course of time. So all these responses, for example, Jayadeva is only Yahi Madhava Yahi Keshava, then Radha is telling Kajala Malina, I see your that you have a mark of kajal on your lips. I see scratches of nails on your chest. So Krishna doesn't respond. But in the composition, so this is where the amplification, the sanchari happened. In the composition, there are songs, Madhura Vachana, there are many songs in the Raslila, in Manobhanjana. Manobhanjana was a very famous Raslila. So where Krishna is, he has to take a different disguise to try to convince the offended Radha to leave her mano or her abhimano, her offense, and to conquer her again. So there is a song where he deals with the Saki, and the Saki says, "Oh, you have come now at this time, and what happened to your this one that is black?" And he realized that something is there. So no, I went to eat these berries, and by eating the berries, the juice remained here. And this little bit of blood you have here, what it is? Oh, this one I was teaching to the parrots, singing to the parrots, and the parrots can bite my lips. So, Acha, and what happened to the scratch on your chest? Oh, this one, I went because there was a very beautiful flower up, and so there are so many thorns, branches and all these things. So by stretching myself to reach that, the branches hurt my chest, and they left all these scratches on my chest. So all these things are there in the Odia literature. But again, one has to be careful that when you add these kind of things, you don't have to go too much far from the main bag, because otherwise if you go too much in the comic or in the you go too much. After all, Radha is paining. He's seeing these things, accusing him, and for him is a Kandita Naik is jealous, but is painful for her. So if you depict too much the character of Krishna as too much comic or too much dramatized, you go away from the main style bhava. So the art of adding or interpolating or amplifying has to be within certain limit, so not to distract but to enrich the main sentiment, the main thread of the poem. So this was an example. At the National Seminar on Geet Govinda held in Delhi in March 1967, jointly organized by the Sangeet Natak Academy and Lalit Kala Academy, Kalicharan Patnaik was invited to read a paper on Geet Govinda in Odissi dance, and Kelucharan Mohapatra to present the dance rendition of the Ashtapadi. For the occasion, 2 new compositions were composed by him to be danced by his student Kumkum Mohanty. The 11th song, Dhira Samire Yamuna Tire Vasati Vane Banamali, with a gentle wind on the bank of the Yamuna, the one with the wildflowers garland dwells in the forest. And the 6th song, Saki He Kesi Matana Mudaram, O friend, bring the killer of demon Kesi to revel with me. In the dance composition, this one, it is the one which I'll just show a little bit. In the dance composition of Saki He Kesi Matana Mudaram, the first line of the song, Ni Bruta Nikunja Gruham Gataya Nisi, I went to his hut in the secret thicket by night, is narrated by Radha to her friend through a detailed description of how the forest which she had to go through was full of unruly branches which stuck her to her sari, how the rough path was full of thorns which pierced her feet, how snakes crossing the track frightened her, and how she feared to be intercepted along the way by either passerby. So all these are not explicitly said in the text of the Sanskrit poem. This text just say the Bruta Nikunja, in the secret, in the night, in the forest I went. So secretly in the night is dark, there's a forest. So this inspire how to project this, to amplify this. So all these things which she finds along the path is to describe that it was to be secret, which kind of dress she will wear. She cannot wear a very bright dress because otherwise people will see her. And then she has to go out of the house, and suddenly she realizes that people are sleeping. So she goes very quietly without waking them up. Then it is very dark, so she sees a shadow and she's afraid that it is a snake. Then the branches are perching her sari, so she gets scared that somebody maybe they are seeing her. So all these things are added. So these are all the sanchari which I was mentioning. So the capacity of reading in between the lines of the poem and to enlarge the scope of the narration with the right dose of amplification without deviating from the main intention which runs through the poem is what establishes and distinguishes the merit of one composition from another. It is in this application of this sanchari bhava or auxiliary circumstances that the richness of the poetic text is expanded and recreated through the language of the visual representation. And it is through this amplification that the connection with the rich cultural background, which is at the base and nurture the revival of the dance, is more explicit. The centuries-long tradition, which started with the mention of Odra Magadi Pravritri in the Natya Shastra, and left behind exemplary works of art in architecture, sculpture, literature, painting, and music, and survived in spite of the foreign invasion and political turmoils, it is revealed in the creative visual interpretation of these great masters. The beautiful varieties of poses of Krishna, depicted by Kelucharan Mohapatra while rendering the line Vasati Vane Vanumali, the one with the wildflowers garland dwells in the forest, in the 11 Ashtapadi, are directly connected to the colorful Patachitra painting that he saw executed by the elders in his village during his childhood. Whereas the elegant sitting poses of Radha, when after her union with Krishna in the 24th song Kurya Dunandana Chandana Sisira Tarena Karena Bhayodare, O Yadava hero, your hand is cooler than sandal on my breast. She requests her lover to paint leaf design with musk paste on her breast, her to be found etched in stone in the round niches of the chariot wheels of the Sun Temple in Konarka. At the same time, one can recognize these poses in the graceful way of curling the knee near the chest with a slight inclination of the hip and the head made to rest on the raised knee as adopted by the village women while sitting on the floor to cut brittle nut for making pan or while preparing the sandalwood paste for the worship of the deity. Guruji always was telling, see how Guru Ma is sitting, see how she's walking. See this lady, how she's carrying the amphora on her head. See how she's... Every time this was a continuous observation of the world around, especially the women was inspiration for. So, and all this is reflected in the composition, all this entering. So the entire culture, the entire living culture is there in this performing representation. Each Astapadi of the Gita Govinda has offered ample scope to be interpreted in the Odissi idiom with the right dose of imagination without transgressing the literal and contextual meaning of the poem. No doubt the lyrical and musical quality of the text leads itself to be interpreted in dance, and all the classical styles of dance have incorporated it in their repertoire. But it is the Odissi dance that gradually became almost synonymous with Gita Govinda among all of them. No Odissi program seems to be complete without the rendition of one Ashtapadi, almost like in continuation to the edict of the 1499, where it was made compulsory to sing and dance only Gita Govinda in the Jagannath temple. The charm of this little poem has remained unchanged along the centuries and has found a new avatar in each epoch. From the ritualistic rendition in the Jagannath temple to the mass-oriented theatrical representations, from the philosophical interpretation to the sophisticated rendition in the classical style of dance, it has been reimagined, recreated, reinvented in a myriad of expressions. No doubt, the first song, Pralaya Payodi Jale Nutavana Siveda, in the waters of destruction you supported the Veda, and the second song of the poem, Srita Kamala Kucha Mandala, you lay upon the roundness of Kamala breast, both chanted as invocatory prayers during the evening arati rituals in the houses and temples all over Odisha, have contributed to render the poem extremely popular among the masses. But then it has been the concurrence between so many forms of visual representations, pictorial illustration, sculptural carving, musical rendition, and religious beliefs that has created an all-around system of support from where the poem has drawn new vitality along the centuries, functioning at the same time as an unending source of artistic inspiration. So I would like to show just few photos now. Is it possible? Oh. Catch during the... come away. Oh. Is it anything moving? But you have to switch off, otherwise you can't see anything. In 2000, Radha Premalila, these two small kids, they were very small. Yeah, Radha Premalila, all the sleepers, very young boys, and they are so involved. I remember that one is doing Radha and one is doing Krishna. Krishna, during this acting, the Mukuta fell down so many times, and the master went up and put it again. But he didn't was disturbed at all. He continued to act and to wear with so much involvement. They are all 6, 7, 8 years old. So this is from Kanjam. The Guru Govinda Pradhan was. This is another one. This is from Durla Chandra Singh. This is 1998. This is Raslila Bonabihari. These were more slightly. This is Mohan Sundar Goswami, who was one of the most renowned head of this Raslila party, and one of the most popular in those years in the 1920s, 30s and 40s. And this is the famous 1947 Dasavatar, which I was talking behind, before, and it is a very important element and milestone in the Odissi repertoire, because it was the first, we consider to be the first composition. And this is Kelucharan Mohapatra and his wife dancing. This photo belongs to that period. This is Akadapilla in 1981. During some of the Jula Jatra in Puri, the Akada, at that time the Gotipua, or they are also called Akadapilla, were in this fashion. But tonight you will see how change has been. That time they were not wearing a stitch dress; they were wearing sari in this fashion, and they had all, of course, this kind of false ornaments, because they didn't have the ways to buy better ornaments. But there were the style and all these things was more typical. Now it has a little bit merged into the Odissi. This is Mayada Raut and Sanjukta Panigrai in that Gita Govinda dance drama in 1963, which was choreographed by Kelucharan Mohapatra for the Kalavikas Kendra. And these two are the Kelucharan Mohapatra in the Jayadev seminar in 1967, where Kumkum Mohanty, she is sitting behind. She danced to Ashtapadi, but then they asked Guruji also to perform and to do a demonstration. So these both are representing him. Then, let's see. I have the photo of these three. She is Kokila Prabha. She was the last Mahari who was performing in Bitaregani, in the category of the Bitaregani, which are the category which were only allowing to be near the Sanctum Sanctorum in the evening and to perform the Gita Govinda for the Bodha Singara Rupa. So after her demise, that ritual has been suspended. There was no more other belonging to this category. So Kokila Priya. This is Shashimani Mahari, who is considered to be, she died a few years ago. She was the last Mahari. She had stopped, of course, to perform in the temple because the ritual in the temple is not long ago. But she was still doing some, she had already some seva in Rukmini, in some of the Krishna, in some of the outside ritual of the temple. She was doing some seva still, but not inside the temple. And Arapriya Devi or Dunguriappa Mahari, she is the person with whom I was continuously in touch, and I got a lot of information guide from her. She was not performing anymore in the temple. She was a very deep devoted Vaishnava devotee, but she was she has stopped to perform in the temple much before the others. Some of the this is some of the Talapatra in which I got they inspire the composition of the Gita Govinda, like, because many of these Talapatra were maybe the Gita Govinda was written engraved on the side. They had illustration, so the master took inspiration from some of these poses for the dance composition. This is Radha confiding with her friend that could be in the Sakhiye Kesimatanodana when she says, this is what happened to me when I met to meet Krishna. This is Krishna repenting when he realized that he didn't behave so well with Radha, and Radha was offended and he couldn't approach her. And then this is the Swadhina Bhartrika when Radha finally has conquered him, and after the love making, she is asking him to remake her hairstyle, to remake her ornamentation. So these are important sources of, like another important source is the Alasakanya, which are different dancing poses on the temples. This is the chamara. She's holding with the chamara on the shoulder. This is the Ketaki Varana. Every time they are in Tribangi poses, but different position. Now she's holding the branch over the head. This is a mandala, playing the mandala. And every time they have different feet position, which for us this is Trasyapada, this is the mudra, has a certain name, the Mahdi has a certain name. So for us, this is like a textbook. This is Matrumurti. The small son has been destroyed, but the head is not there, but the poses is very much there and are using it very much in dance, holding the child. And this is Nupura Palika when she is putting the Nupura on the feet, the beds. This is Padmaganda when she is severing the sense of the lotus. So more or less these were. Okay, so as I said. I don't know, maybe if you want, I can do just a few minutes of this Sakhiye Kesimatananda. Yeah, this one we don't need anymore. Kunja Ruham Gataya Nesi Whereas I say that she's recollecting or fantasizing, in her imagination. She's telling to her friend, just like we talk between friends. See, I went, I did this, then I was trying to get out of the house, then this has happened, and then finally we met. So it's just a dialogue and between two friends. And so how this Dibrut Nikunja Gruham Gatayanisi has been expanded with different situation. So what I was telling.
मैं नहीं जानती हूँ कोई इसमें अगर कोई डांस सीखने वाले विद्यार्थी हैं क्या? कोई है जो ओडिसी सीख रहे हैं? नहीं। अगर आप कोई प्रश्न पूछना चाहते हैं मैडम से, कोई जिज्ञासा है आपकी, उन्होंने जो लेक्चर अपना प्रेजेंट किया उसमें, ओके, म्यूजिक स्टार्ट हो रहा है, इसलिए हम लोग मैडम का परफॉर्मेंस देखेंगे थोड़ा सा।
improvise, but I hope you have understood the purpose of show.
मैडम को, और छोटा ही सही लेकिन उनका अभिनय हम लोग को देखने को मिला, और जो वो बता रही थी इम्प्रोवाइजेशन के बारे में, सभी समझ गए होंगे कि घर से बाहर निकलते समय दिया बुझाया, पहले दरवाज़ा खोला, और चलते समय बहुत संभाल के चल रहे हैं, फिर भी पायल की आवाज़ न आ जाए जिससे औरों को पता चल जाए कि कोई बाहर निकला है और वो लोग जग जाएं। पायल उतार के अलग रख दिया। रास्ते में पैर में कांटा चुभा, क्योंकि अंधेरे में चली जा रही है नायिका कृष्ण को खोजने के लिए। तो ये सारी चीज़ें हमारे ख्याल से सबको बहुत स्पष्ट हो गई होंगी। जितना गहन आपका परफॉर्मेंस है, जो जितना इन्होंने सीखा है, उतना ही गहन इनका अभ्यास सारी चीज़ों को देखने में भी है। इतिहास की तारीखें बताते हुए इन्होंने सारी चीज़ें बताई, कैसे कैसे किस राजा के समय में क्या हुआ, किस शासक के समय क्या हुआ। और गीत गोविंद जो जयदेव के द्वारा लिखा हुआ था, उसके जगह पे शासक ने जब पुरुषोत्तम, हाँ, प्रताप रुद्रदेव, उन्होंने दूसरा सामने रखना चाहा, लेकिन भगवान ने उसको एक्सेप्ट नहीं किया। ये कहानियाँ होती हैं, लेकिन बहुत विश्वास इसमें इस तरह से होता है कि ऐसी चीज़ें कुछ हो गई। इन्होंने बहुत पढ़ा है और बहुत विस्तार से सारी चीज़ें इन्होंने समझाई। उसमें कुछ अपना बताना चाहूँगी कि ओडिसी नृत्य से पहला परिचय मेरा यहाँ तब हुआ जब मैं यहाँ फर्स्ट ईयर की स्टूडेंट थी, 76-77 में बीए में। और BHU में हमेशा कॉन्वोकेशन के बाद बहुत अच्छे परफॉर्मेंसेस होते हैं आर्टिस्ट्स के। उसमें सबसे पहले संजुक्ता जी को हमने देखा था, और तब समझ में आया कि शरीर में जो बिजली कहते हैं वो क्या होती है। आँख से देखा जब उनका परफॉर्मेंस, तब समझ में आया। और उसके बाद गुरु जी का केलुचर महापात्र जी को 2 बार देखा सामने से। एक बार नाटक मंडली में किसी बड़े महोत्सव में आए थे, और एक बार शंकर कोचन संगीत समारोह में सामने से देखा उनको। और ये बहुत अच्छा अवसर है। ये 2026 गुरु जी का शताब्दी वर्ष है, और उसमें आपका ये जो सेकेंड कॉन्क्लेव है कवि सम्राट उपेंद्र भंज जी के संदर्भ में, तो गुरु जी का सेंटिनरी ईयर है। उसमें हम लोग को उनकी प्रमुख शिष्या में से एक डॉक्टर इलेना जी को देखने का अवसर मिला। ये बहुत हमारे लिए हर्ष का विषय है। नृत्य के प्रकार को केवल सीखना और उसे प्रस्तुत करना एक अलग बात होती है, और उसकी सूक्ष्मता को समझना, जटिलताओं को समझते हुए उसमें क्रिएटिविटी के साथ आना एक अलग बात है। और इलियाना जी के रूप में एक विलक्षण व्यक्तित्व के दर्शन हुए हैं हमको। सामने से उन्हें देखने का ही मेरा अवसर है, ये मैंने पहले उनको बता दिया है। और उस समय जब मैंने टीवी पर इनका परफॉर्मेंस देखा था, तभी इनके ग्रेस से मैं बहुत प्रभावित हुई थी। बहुत सम्मान मिला है इनको, तो वो बहुत दोबारा कहने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। सारी चीज़ें हम लोग पहले बात कर चुके हैं। इनको तो हमें लगता है भारत की सांस्कृतिक दूत कहें तो यही संबोधन, यही विरोध शायद सटीक बैठता है इनके लिए। आज जब ये इम्प्रोवाइजेशन के बारे में बता रही थी, तो जैसे बताया कि पहले केवल दशावतार के गीत ही वही वाला प्रसंग ज़्यादा करते थे, और बहुत श्रृंगारिक होने की वजह से दूसरी अष्टपदियों का अभिनय नहीं होता था। वो बहुत बाद में शुरू हुआ है। और हम लोग का जो परिचय है, जैसे मैडम ने कहा कि सभी डांस स्टाइल्स में गीत गोविंद को तो अभी लेते हैं, लेकिन ओडिसी में होता ही होता है। ओडिसी डांस अगर आप देखने जाएंगे तो जयदेव की अष्टपदी आपको देखने को मिलेगी ही मिलेगी। और इस गीत गोविंद के माध्यम से इन्होंने बता दिया, राधा के माध्यम से कौन कौन सी नायिकाएं हैं सारी, एक एक अष्टपदी का उदाहरण देते हुए आपने खंडिता का बताया, विरहोत्कंठिता का बताया, विप्रलब्धा का बताया, और अधिक टाइम होता तो शायद हम लोग उसको भी देखने का मौका पा सकते थे। सखी के रोल में भक्त हमको दिखता है आत्मा और परमात्मा के बीच, जो इन्होंने बताया कि मायाधर राउत जी ने और केलुचरण महापात्रा ने इस दृष्टि को वहां दिया कि केवल नायक नायिका के बीच का ये श्रृंगार नहीं है, ये आत्मा और परमात्मा का संबंध है। और वो दृष्टि आने से पूरा परिप्रेक्ष्य बदल जाता है हमारा। किसी को भी हम करें, हम जिस दृष्टि से उसको देखते हैं वो बदल जाता है पूरा हमारा। और संचारी भाव 1960s के बाद उसमें जोड़ा गया। और ये जो बताया कि जो नायिका अधरों पर काजल को देख करके अगर प्रश्न करती है कि तुम्हारे अधरों पर ये काजल क्यों है, तो जो उसका उत्तर उसमें दिया गया है। इन्होंने जैसे बोला कि वो अष्टपदी में मेंशन नहीं है उन चीज़ों का, वो रीडिंग बिटवीन द लाइन्स वाली बात है कि कोरियोग्राफर उसको किस तरह से देख रहे हैं। तो वो जो बताते हैं कि उस फल का रस हमारे होठों पर लग गया है, या जो नाखूनों के स्क्रैचेस दिख रहे हैं वक्षस्थल पर, वो कैसे हैं। तो वो जैसे कि फूलों को तोड़ने जा रहे हैं और उसके प्रयास में वो जो कांटे हैं वो हमारी छाती पर लग गए। ये जो कहना है ये सीधे सीधे हमको सूरदास जी का मैया मोरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो इसकी याद दिलाता है, जिसमें कृष्ण भगवान अपने बचाव में क्या कहते हैं, मैया मोरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो, लेकिन उनके मुंह पे माखन लगा हुआ है तो कैसे अपना बचाव करेंगे। वो कहते हैं ग्वाल बाल सब बैर पड़े हैं। ये जो हमारे साथ हमारे ग्वाल बाल घूमते हैं, हमारे सखा जो हैं, इन सबको हमारे से दुश्मनी है। वो चाहते हैं कि मुझे डांट पड़े, मैं चोरी करते हुए पकड़ा जाऊं, इसलिए वो कहते हैं ग्वाल बाल सब बैर पड़े हैं, बरबस मुख लपटाए। उन्होंने जबरदस्ती मेरे मुंह पर आकर के मक्खन लगा दिया है। तो ये उनकी ओर से अपने बचाव में कही गई बातें हैं। तो इसी तरह की चीजें जो कोरियोग्राफर है वो देखते हैं कंपोज करते समय, वो जब तक वो पूरा उसका आत्मसात नहीं कर जाते हैं उस पद्य को, तब तक ये चीजें निकल के सामने नहीं आती हैं। और केलुचरण जी हैं या मायाधर राउत जी हैं या पंकज चरण दास जी हैं, सब उस कोटि के गुरु हैं कि जिन्होंने क्या पढ़ा, उस जयदेव को कैसे समझा और उसको फिर उन्होंने उसको डांस में किया। और बहुत सारी अष्टपदियाँ सब लोग कहते हैं। और सबसे आरंभिक जो होता है उसमें हम लोग हरिरी हम उद्धवधूनि करे विलासिनी विलसति केरी परे देखते हैं, या ही माधव या ही केशव माँ वद कई तव भाषण। और ठीक है, मैडम ने बहुत सारी चीज़ें बताई दी। प्रलय पयोधि जले के बारे में बता दिया। और जय जय देव हरे जो है, ये तो हमारा जो फैकल्टी ऑफ परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट्स है, इसकी नृत्य की प्रेयर है, जिसको इस संस्था के पहले प्राचार्य जो थे पंडित ओमकारनाथ ठाकुर जी, उन्होंने इसको कंपोज किया था और ये नृत्य की प्रेयर में आता है। तो बहुत धन्यवाद मैडम आपको इस सारगर्भित लेक्चर के लिए। और मौका होता और सुनते आपको और देखते। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
We are blessed with this divine performance of Dr. Ileana Citaristi, and we are thankful to Professor Ileana Citaristi for describing all her performance in simple and lucid language. बहुत सारी चीजें हमें समझ में शायद मुश्किल नहीं होगी, लेकिन मैडम के सारांश के रूप में प्रस्तुत करने से हमारे लिए बहुत अच्छा होगा। So now it's a time for felicitation. So students, if you are ready with the felicitations. Yeah. So it's a time to interact with Dr. Ileana if you wish. So please put your questions. Already, okay, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So honoring the time, now may I call upon Professor Ileana Citaristi to felicitate Dr. Ileana Citaristi. So, student team, please come with the felicitation item. So I request Professor Ileana Citaristi to felicitate Dr. Ileana Citaristi. Saroj Padiji to please join on the dais and felicitate Professor Ileana Citaristi. Thank you very much.